All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garrett Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV. Attorney General Todd Rokita now has a challenger in his bid for a second term. You might remember Destiny Wells. She was the Democratic candidate for Secretary of State in 2022. She's running again, this time for Attorney General. She made that announcement on November 20th. I sat down with her for her first TV interview since that announcement. Let's bring in Destiny Wells. Destiny, welcome back to the program.
Hey, great to be here.
Tell me about your decision to run for Attorney General.
Well, I had been mulling over the decision for the last couple of months, and I just could not leave what was on the table that we left last year. We built a lot of infrastructure in our Secretary of State race, and we started from scratch. So we're going to try again and do this time, and we're super excited.
You said you want to restore ethical conduct to that office, and you plan to lead by example in order to do so. In practice, what would that look like day to day?
Well, it would look like not getting my license suspended or having my license censured, right? So we have been seeing a lot of that coming out of the day-to-day office affairs under the last two attorneys general. And so what we want to do is restore integrity and professionalism to the office. I've worked in that office before. I've even worked as a line dag, and I understand the day-to-day affairs. I understand the expectations that are put on the staff and where there are areas for improvement and how to get back to business in the office.
Tell me a little bit more about how your experience in that office prepared you for this job. You worked there for roughly a year or so, I believe, in the Corrections Litigation Division.
Right, and so in that office, what we had some very dedicated litigators, but we also had a lack of strategy working with the Department of Correction as an agency and keeping that litigation at a level that could be maintained. There were very robust dockets. Some people had, over 70, 80 cases, and that's where the Attorney General really should be focusing, not focusing on going on press tours and talking about national issues, but better servicing the citizenry, because at the end of the day, that office is supposed to be there to serve the citizens, whether it be consumer protection or its agencies like the Correctional Litigation Division and other government litigation divisions.
You've strongly criticized Indiana's abortion ban, as well as the laws that target transgender youth in sports and gender-affirming care for minors. If you were elected Attorney General, would you enforce those laws or defend them in court?
What I would not do is what has been happening lately, and that is where the Attorney General is using investigative demands to go on a bit of a witch hunt, whether it be the Department of Health, the Indiana Department of Health and our own agencies, or whether it be investigative demands, which is a subpoena-like power with hospital corporations. So I would not be out searching for the cases, but I would have the responsibility in upholding the laws as set by the legislature and executive.
How would you enforce Indiana's housing laws?
I would go and make sure that we are working within the staff to have a robust effort within the divisions to be working with agencies. What we want to be doing better is that we want to be working with our fellow agencies in a collaborative manner. So you have the housing laws, you also have issues with workers' rights and the Department of Labor. What we have are agencies in the state that don't have the resources to be doing everything that is required. And so we want to be using the Attorney General's office as an enabler and beefing up those services with our fellow agencies.
You just alluded to this. You said you would want to enact a workers' bill of rights if you were elected Attorney General. What would that entail?
So we've seen over the last couple of years the Parents' Bill of Rights, despite having an Indiana Department of Education. And so let's look at what we actually need. We have not had a Democratic Attorney General since before Right to Work. And so the needs have changed. And we need to look at our surrounding states and how they're better than us. The Illinois Attorney General's office has a very robust labor division where they are looking at issues like worker misclassification and wage theft. And so we want to help Hoosiers in that way and work with whether it be supporting union needs and making sure that we are giving enough resources to work and collaborate with local prosecutors. And we can do anything from having a task force of a couple line attorney deputies, some deputies, attorney general, or we can look at it from an even more robust perspective, like in Illinois, where they have an entire labor division devoted to that.
Would you pursue any enforcement actions against social media companies such as TikTok, as the current Attorney General has done?
So what we've seen is a very deliberate effort by the Republican AGs Association, by RAGA, to jump on litigation throughout the country. It could be not just social media, it could be a pipeline in Montana, it could be a climate bill in California, it could be a border issue down in Texas, and those are very hyper-partisan political issues. Similarly to social media, there are concerns in social media, and you can see that not only in the Democrat AGs Association, but also the Republicans. But it needs to be in a purposeful way and not just a way to get on the news or to copy, the Texas AG's office. If there's already litigation out there, we need to be more mindful about how we use our resources within the Indiana Attorney General's office.
So you would potentially pursue enforcement actions if there were not already cases pending, but if there was something else already underway, you'd hold back and see how that worked?
There's always, the landscape is always developing that way, right? Let's point to my last 20 years of being in the intelligence community. I don't personally have TikTok on my phone. And I take that instruction from the Department of Defense. And so I do believe that there are issues within our social media landscape. TikTok is very different in the States versus TikTok in China. And those are very nuanced issues, and we would want to support the national security agenda of the country and make sure that we're not undermining what we're trying to do collectively when it comes to social media.
In 2022, you, Tom McDermott, and Zanae Brooks ran as a more or less united slate of candidates. This time around, do you plan to do that again, or would you be focused more on your individual run for AG?
Well, and there was also Jessica McClellan, who was running for treasurer, and so that was a very united ticket. And what we want to do again this time is to be a united front. I just spoke with Jennifer McCormick on the phone last night, and we talked about how we were going to do that. And the AG's office, there's only one current AG. He's not the governor. And so I need to be focused on the AG's office and what we can do better when it comes to that office as compared to who may be the Senate candidate when we find out in May, or our only gubernatorial primary candidate right now, and that's Jennifer.
You took home 40% of the vote when you ran for Secretary of State in 2022, and that race did not feature an incumbent candidate. What makes this election different?
Well, it was a midterm, right? And so we had, just like I discussed all last year, we had a turnout issue in the midterm. And we did not see turnout that we wanted in the urban areas. And a Democrat cannot be successful unless they have that turnout. And so we are looking at a very different year. This will be a presidential year, and we will have much more people showing up to vote. And yet to be determined what next year's presidential ticket looks like. But we will take that as it comes, and we expect it to be a very different year, and that's why we are doing this again. We are very optimistic that we will be working with more of the electorate, and we will also be looking at issues that we underestimated last year, and that is straight ticket voting, right? I don't think anybody understood how polarized the electorate was last year with straight ticket voting, where people are walking in, they're just pulling for their party. and they're not considering the candidates. We expect that people will be looking much more closely at the candidates next year, just by virtue of what is at the top of the ticket in a possible, Donald Trump, President Biden matchup, and maybe a third-party candidate.
How do you make that case to voters, though, who might say, well, I voted for you last time, or I considered you last time, but you didn't get in?
We're running against the current Indiana Attorney General this time, right? So last year we had 2 candidates. With Diego as the Secretary of State candidate for the Republicans, and it was not a race that had people interested. We have now an incumbent who has a 4-year record. Will have a 4-year record of really upsetting Hoosiers and putting our energy in these national partisan fights. People are tired of it. They don't want to do it, and this should be another down ballot technocratic race. Look, I didn't go try to run up ballot after losing, right? I'm not running for governor. I'm not running for Senate. I'm running for another down ballot technocratic race and building upon everything that we did last year.
What do you believe sets you apart from any other potential Democratic candidates for Attorney General?
Exactly what I just said, that we are the only candidate that will have the infrastructure from running a down ballot race last year. I have our infrastructure when it comes to party support from Northwest Indiana across and down south. I got to know a ton of people last year, and when it comes to that infrastructure within the party and having that statewide party support, I believe I am unmatched in that regard.
Destiny Wells, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
That was Destiny Wells, Democratic candidate for Attorney General in 2024. Remember, you can catch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30, only on Wish TV. I'm Garrett Bergquist. Thanks for listening.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.